Hey everybody, welcome back. It's MJ from Just Plain Fun, and this video is about a recent pick that I had where I was able to score a bunch of planes off Facebook Marketplace. The way the listing was worded was that these were tools that were actually used at one time, and based on what was present, I don't find that hard to believe. I don't think this was necessarily somebody's collection. I think this was a set of tools that someone was actually using to work. So let's start off with this number 12 scraper here, and how cool is that? It's got the original Sweetheart blade in it. I mean, you can tell it's been used. This thing would normally be about another inch and a half taller, but it's been used. Overall, this thing is still in pretty doggone good shape. I'm kind of curious if there's a Sweetheart logo hiding underneath that. You can kind of see some of the words there where it says probably Stanley Rule and Level Company around the outside. So it'll be interesting to clean that up to see what's underneath it. But overall, a pretty solid number 12 here. I'll probably just leave that as is. And apparently it was whoever had them was doing a little fiberboard work. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the 1951 here. There's a 193 and then I think what's it, a 93 or something like that. The 193 is the big one with all the attachments. And then this is just a little guy. So you would, of course, set this fence and you would cut a single piece of fiberboard with that. You got a blade that mounts right there. One of the less common ones, I think. And then just a smoothing plane. So a Miller's Falls number 9. So a number 4 size plane. And it'll be a decent little user. That one will clean up plenty well. Got an original Miller's Falls blade, it looks like. For tongue and groove purposes, at one time, the gentleman had a 48, which you may or may not be aware is the larger of the two sizes. So this one takes a 5/16 blade. And as anybody who's familiar with these knows, this fence is designed to swing around so that you can do, of course, your tongue and your groove. This one actually has a number 45 blade standing in. This is the original. This is a 45. Of course, that could be cut if someone was so inclined and wanted to make it match, but still a plenty good user on there, on that one. And then this is actually the 49. So this is the less common of the two. And this one takes, as I recall, a 3/16 blade. But you can see that that rail is skinnier. Unfortunately, this one is not only missing both blades, but it's also missing one of these caps. And unfortunately, it's not uncommon for the cap to get broken. I think folks tend to over tighten these sometimes, and then it breaks it in half, unfortunately. But still some decent parts here. If I could find another cap, I guess I could maybe try to bring this back to life. But I think I actually have somebody who's looking for one of these. So between that and maybe the fence, maybe I can help somebody else's 49 come back to life. I'm going to show you a couple of these specialty planes that this user had. This is, of course, a Stanley number 20. Some people might say Stanley Victor number 20, but at any rate, it's got the V logo, kind of tough to see. The V logo iron, and this one is in surprisingly good shape. A lot of times when you find these, they're going to be broken in one way or another. Different parts on this will shear or break. Of course, the adjustable sole will be sometimes pitted real bad or just bent up or broken or etc. A lot of times this set screw right here is missing, unfortunately, on these. But this one is complete and it's in surprisingly good shape. And look at that, it's still got some shavings in there from the last time that this thing was used. That is pretty cool in my opinion. And this one will be for sale. I don't need another circular plane. This is kind of the big brother of the number 113. And some folks swear by these. They, see them as a superior model to the 113 for the purposes of doing the work that a circular plane would do. But I'm going to stick with my 113. I still think that is so cool that that thing still has the shavings. Of course, on the one hand, it could have been cleaner and maybe less likely to rust on that blade, but still pretty cool that it was actually being used right up to the day that it was retired, probably unintentionally. So this number 55 showed up in the picture on the listing on the ad on Marketplace, and the seller did a great job. They took some great pictures and listed what was included, but I am happy to report that what I saw in the picture was actually less than what this plane included. So one of these days I'm going to do a video on inventorying the number 55, and I'm going to show you some of these different bells and whistles that this thing came with. But this is the plane itself, and this is most of what was in the box, although still not all of what was in the box. This is that little foot off of the auxiliary tower, if you're familiar with the 55. The cam rest, if you've watched my inventory in the number 45 video, you know what this thing is for. And then there were only 2 of the blade boxes included, but it appears that most of the original blades are there. So, and I have spare boxes, so I'll be able to put this set back together. Kind of interesting here, 2 slitter depth stops, which tells me that there may have been a number 45 or maybe a Miller's patent plane that would account for why there were 2. But that was not included in the purchase of this set, and the slitter was there. But a couple more things of note. This is a custom blade. This is not a Stanley profile that they would have produced. So somebody actually cut this, presumably because they wanted to make that specific profile. So I might have to pop that into a 55 sometime and just see what that profile looks like, see if it actually works. And also, perhaps the greatest pull here is this iron right here. This is actually a special iron, one of the special cutters that Stanley sold. And so more than likely what the owner did was they probably bought this individually from Stanley as an individual iron, which was something that you could do back then. So apparently they wanted to do reeding that would have produced 4 individual reeds, if you will. Just as a point of comparison, these are the 3 original reeding irons that came stock with the 55. And then this one you can see is quite a bit larger. And then there were also a couple of the fluting irons. These are the only 2 that I found so far. The other 2 may be in there. And incidentally, the way that you know these are the original is because these are even numbers. So 32 through 38. All evens. And then if you wanted to get the specialty cutters, they would have been the odd numbers, and then they would have been the odd sizes that would have fallen in between these 2. That's your little FYI, or your little point to ponder about number 55 irons. And while I was putting these away, I noticed there are some more customized irons. So there's kind of a theme here, sorta. And this one's obviously seen a lot better days, but it looks like they were looking for that specific profile that was light on one side and heavy on the other, or vice versa. So kind of interesting there. Next up was the Gentleman's 4-plane. And incidentally, this one is missing this screw right here. How many times have we seen that? So if you guys know any good parts guys, or know somewhere where I might be able to get that replacement screw, let me know in the comments, and that'll be great. And now this one is interesting to me. Again, I said it's a 4-plane because it's a number 6. But notice the camber on the iron there. So that tells me that the gentleman was actually using this as what we now refer to as a scrub plane. So I don't know if you would consider that a scrub plane, but I would say with that camber on the iron, there's a highly, highly good chance that he was going cross grain with that. And so prepping rough stock lumber with this later model number 6. This plane body was one that wasn't included in the listing, but it was just thrown in as an extra. And I mean, there was a fair amount of money that changed hands on this deal. So I'm definitely not upset about that. Unfortunately, I don't think this can necessarily be saved. And plus, it's got that chip back there. And this plane is not uncommon enough to warrant, trying to save that. And I think that's probably pretty badly pitted. But the good news is this tote is still in good shape. I don't see any cracks, dents, or anything like that. So I think with a little steel wool, that tote will clean up real nice. And then we got a pretty decent low knob. It does have a crack right there. But overall, I think we can probably recover a part or 2 off of that little number 4. So this was, once upon a time, probably a smoothing plane. And I mentioned the smoothing plane because we've now looked at a couple smoothing planes. We've looked at a 4-plane. And this, of course, is the jointer. So we've got a number 7 here. And this one is in pretty doggone decent shape. I mean, we're going to call that a Type 9 Alpha. We got no frog adjustment screw. We've got 2 patent dates back there. But we have an intact tote, which that's a common theme among this set, was every single tote was intact, which of course I love to see. The mouth on this is not absolutely perfect. There is that one little tiny ding back there, but overall, I definitely think that this will work as a number 7 as a jointer. One of these, I don't remember which one it is, but it doesn't have the original Stanley iron. Now that's a T logo, so that is the correct iron, or pretty doggone close to it. I guess maybe a Q might have been original, but a T works here. And overall, I think this is going to be a great user for somebody. Bring that one back to life as their jointer. All right, we got 3 more planes to look at here. Y'all know it wouldn't be a JPF video if we didn't save the best for last. I mean, how else could we do it? So we've got a very nice 605.5. This guy had really, really good taste in planes. And this one being we're going to call that a Type 6 single line Bedrock up here on the lever cap, and then 2 patent dates back here. And this one is just, I mean, what a beauty. It's been used. The iron's got some use on it. Got a nice T logo iron in it. And once again, a nice intact original tote. And a pretty decent mouth on this one. I mean, this is definitely a gouge that's not a crack. And so overall, that's a pretty decent looking mouth there. Now, this one is going to go to the gentleman who actually helped put me on this deal, because without him, I would not have found it. But for every other plane that you guys are seeing in this video, of course, the patrons are going to get first crack at them. So you guys let me know if you see something you can't live without. And we're down to the last 2. We got a Bedrock 604.5. And what was interesting on this one is in the listing, it was listed as a 604. And I'm going to give the seller the benefit of the doubt that, you know, you got a bunch of grime and stuff here. You can't actually see the half down there. I mean, I can barely get it on the camera there, and we know what we're looking for. But one of the very first things I saw when the seller opened his trunk was that screw right there. And as soon as I saw that screw, I knew it could not be a 604. It has to be a 604.5, right? So we've got another Type 5 here. We've got 2 patent dates back there. We've got a single line Bedrock up here. And this is the one that I was thinking of earlier when I said one of the blades was no bueno. So this has actually got a Sargent iron in it, which, I mean, anything goes after over 100 years, but just kind of interesting. I'm going to have to see if I can rustle up a good Stanley blade to put in this. It's going to need either, I think, a T or a V logo, as I recall. But I'm pretty sure I can find one or the other, 2 3/8, in order to get this thing back right. But a 604.5, shouldn't have any trouble finding a buyer for that one. I already have one almost identical to this that I absolutely love. So I'm sure somebody out there is looking for one. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. I want you to pause the video when I'm done talking and lock in your guess. If I told you that this was one of the most scarce, perhaps the rarest of all hand planes, what do you think it is? Lock in your guess mentally, or even write it down if you want to. If you said a Bedrock 602, you are on the right track. And that's what we've got here. An absolutely beautiful 602 with the 2 patent dates back there and a single line Bedrock, so we're going to call it a Type 5. However, but wait, there's more. It's not just any 602, it's a 602C. And that is what makes it perhaps the scarcest of the Stanley planes. Definitely the hardest to find of all of the Bedrocks. And this one does have this little tiny itty bitty, I mean, we're talking almost microscopic little ding right there on the back of the mouth, and then this scratch right here. Because, I mean, when you're talking about a plane like this, I mean, you have to be critical. I mean, you got to look at everything, look at all the apologies on it. But, I mean, how often do you even see a 602C? I've been in this game for, I guess, going on 10 years at the time this video is being made. And this is the first one of these that I've ever even seen. That includes going to MWTCA national meets and going to other smaller meets and everything in between. And this is the first one that I've seen. And what I really think is cool about this one, well, I think there's a lot of things cool about it, but look how much that iron was used. I mean, whoever owned this plane loved this plane. I mean, they used that T logo iron, I mean, right up to the end. With the price point that I'm at on this one, I think I know what's going to happen, which, by the way, I think I'm going to put a V logo in here because either a T or a V works for a Type 5. I think I mentioned that before. So I think I'm going to put a good V logo in there because that's what I have. And based on my price point on it, I think this plane's next destination is going to be Australia. So Mark, if you're watching, let me know. Or one of the other patrons, if you happen to see it first, let me know. But that's what I suspect is going to happen. And I think this thing is going to make an absolutely beautiful addition to someone's collection. And if they get a wild hair and they want to keep using it, then that's cool too. I just noticed something interesting. All 3 of the Bedrocks are all corrugated soles. So apparently this previous owner must have liked corrugated soles, and that would account for why they went out and got a 602C versus just the regular 602. But as always, I appreciate everybody watching. Y'all let me know in the comments what you think of this good usable collection that someone had once upon a time.